Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance, the one stop shop show where we're going to discuss all things witchy, all things energetic, pagan, uh, alternate, everything in between, spirituality as we've experienced it, as we teach it. This is a live discussion, and we're here to create a community and to share, to learn. We're always growing. We extend that to you and receive from you as well. And we are back. It's Thursday again. It feels like we literally went live
Yeah.
yesterday. um, I don't know about the quality of time right now, but it's definitely faster than I anticipated. Um,
That's cause you getting old, babe.
oh, is that what it is? Uh, well, actually,
That's what it is.
might be weird, but I'm looking forward to old age. Like just the freedom of, I'm old. I'm going to
You
do what I
should.
want.
It's really cool if you play your cards right. If you prep for it. I was the worst gerontology student ever when I
Oh,
was
yeah.
going to get my master's and everything, or my PhD, because I didn't play the game. They had a big thing of, what are you going to do about your parents when they're old and can't take care of themselves? I'm like, fuck y'all. My parents died. Okay. I don't have to worry about that. But were they still alive? I would question them why they didn't prepare for the inevitable.
I mean, sounds reasonable. 100%.
I'm loving it. I love everything about being retired. I love everything about croning. It feels as amazing as you think it might. And
Oh.
everybody doesn't have that experience, but I'm right there. I love it.
But I think part of not having that experience is that piece on knowing, right? I mean, our society does not push old age as an invitation to something new. It's just like you're dying and
Yeah.
things are happening to your body. Be prepared. Here's medicine.
What's
Um,
stupid about that is that it doesn't promote old age as a good destination to have.
right.
It's not a positive outcome, but the
Right.
alternative seems so much more grim to me. Like, I would have hated to miss this. I wish I had known it was going to be this cool. I probably would have had a lot more encouragement during the tough times.
Yeah, for
There were
sure.
a lot of
For
those.
sure. So Bram, yes, you feel like this time of year has a lot of momentum to it. It does, even though it's a quality, like not a quality, but the the veil is thin.
The
and
veil is thin. And with Bram in particular, thank you, Bram, is making this season to me feel like I'm sliding down a greased hill
what?
because I am losing Bram in a month,
Yeah.
less than a month in reality. And I can't fathom that. Bram has been a part of my life, my here life for so long, and they're moving to another
Mm.
location. And so it's just looming and getting closer and closer and closer and closer.
Oh, the shift in relationships. I feel like I feel like Bram and I are friends at this point through the show. So to lose
Totally.
them on a in like, in physical proximity, I can imagine the weight of
Yeah.
that. Oh.
There's also, I can say from having experienced all that, a lot of what is Bram, I can tell you that there is an authenticity that comes through in Bram's online presence
Yeah.
that is absolutely genuine to who they are. So
Oh.
you do know Bram, trust me.
Wonderful. And I have to agree here just on the thoughts that Bram has shared. We definitely live in these types of phobic society. And again, this is just what comes through. Hi, Heidi. So tangents.
Yeah, we didn't do introductions yet, did we?
And maybe we don't have to, right? Like this is the flow of life is what it is. But I suppose if this is your first time here, not only are we talking about specific topic today that is poltergeists. Thank you, Katrina. I It's going to be an interesting conversation. But we are individuals in our own right who are living our lives as different things. So let's talk about what some of those things are. I do healing work. I read cards. I channel. Um, I've been at this for almost 10 years now. I had to think about it. It's been quite a long time. I don't know if I've ever stuck with anything or anyone this long. So, definitely a lifestyle for me to lead people through conscious development and to share in different types of people as well, therapists, teachers, other healers, human beings that wish to elevate themselves, expand themselves, ascend, all those things, 360-degree experience through the lens of healing. And I've been doing it a while, and I'm happy to share this space with somebody who's been doing it even longer.
So long. So I just recently had to write a sort of concise bio for myself.
Oh.
And that required some updating because I hadn't done one in a while. So here we go. Katrina Rasbold is a published author of more than 40 books and an associate editor at Green Egg magazine. She's been a witch for more than 4 decades and studied the magical arts all over the world before settling on a remote mountaintop in Central California. She and her husband are co-owners of Crossroads Occult, an online metaphysical store offering goods and services. You can find us at crossroadsoccult.com.
I was very concise.
Why, thank
Nicely done. And imagine you're a writer. No, it's concise.
And I'm more of a writer now. You know what's weird is I'm not writing books now, but I write more now than I did when I was writing books. Because because my books are done, I've had this amazing reconnection with blogging and video blogs. And so I've got 3, maybe 4 different outlets for those things. So I've been doing that a lot. It's been very cool. I enjoy it very much to have that reconnection.
It sounds inspirational, like you're meeting new parts of yourself again.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Well, the topic at hand, poltergeists. So whenever we get to the topic, we gotta define it, right? We gotta create a general definition.
And you just did the academics on this, and like I said, I'm just talking out my butt. So you get to go first and and talk.
So, Bram says they enjoy reading your books.
Oh, good.
So when it comes to poltergeist, so I took German in high school, and we never talked about this word, but it is a German word, poltergeist. It is German for rumbling ghosts. And I was saying pre-show that when it comes to interacting with ghosts and spirits and things like that, rarely do we get the opportunity, or at least rarely do I get the opportunity to dive into what this is. They're just like, most people are like, just get it away from me. Which, I mean, we said it last show, not everything is bad. So it's sometimes it's a little disappointing to hear that mindset, but perfectly understandable for the unknown. And so poltergeists, being the rumbling ghost, their whole bend is moving things, creating noise of any kind, and also sometimes causing harm. And I think that people automatically assume, I'm reflecting on conversations that I've had with different clients and different people going through different experiences. And when they realize that there's a ghost in their home or a spirit in their home, they end up assigning the poltergeist themes automatically to it. It's going to hurt me. It's going to, pull my kids out of bed. It's going to all of these things. And it may not. Like, this is a very specific energy, being, creature, force of nature. And so I find it absolutely fascinating. I was reading a little bit about how they can levitate silverware and create footsteps and things like that. And this is part of the classification, because I've experienced some of this on my own. and we'll be here to share stories. And definitely drop your stories in the comments. We want to see kind of your experiences as well. But Katrina, what is your, how are you coming at this poltergeist theme for us today?
I'm the bad guy.
Ah,
In this whole conversation, and when I teach about ghost spirits, haints, that sort of thing, poltergeist is the one for me. And we will go deeply into this. This is going to be a great conversation, you guys. For me, poltergeist is the one that is most often not what people think it is and not authentic. Those imprint ghosts that we talked about last time, they are almost always, if not provable, duplicatable, and ones that multiple people see and experience. And that's how it becomes a thing is, wow, I had that same experience. I also saw a dark shadow in that same place, whatever it might be. But poltergeist specifically, we'll go into all the reasons why, but it's not something in my experience, which is many decades of house clearing and hand holding and that sort of thing. Sometimes a non-attached hand, but but it's the one that is most usually something different. And again, we'll go into detail on that. Regarding what you said, a couple things I want to mention is when Dahlia said that most people have the idea of just get rid of it. I don't care what it is, just get rid of it. What a lot of people don't understand is that the philosophy of just get rid of it, for me, for Dahlia, for other people who do house cleaning, that really involves maybe 5 tools in our toolbox. We've got maybe 5 things, and that's an arbitrary number. We can try. And whether it's a poltergeist or an imprint ghost or whatever experience these people are having, if those 5 things don't take care of it, we're going to shrug and say you need to get a priest or something like that. Because I mean, it's limited what you can do to affect the other side. You can usually be pretty effective, truthfully. We can usually have an excellent effect. I would say that for me, and I'm going to guess for Dahlia as well, I can give it probably a 95, 96% success rate.
yeah, absolutely.
But we're using the same tools no matter what the infestation is. We treat it basically the same way. So you would want us as professionals to say, well, if it's this type of ghost, I'm going to do this. And if this type of ghost, I'm going to, no, man, I'm banging pans, I'm ringing bells, I'm burning smoke, I'm invoking, I'm doing, I'm taking charge. I'm doing all the same things no matter what kind of ghost it is. Another thing that's really common with poltergeists in particular, and I think Dahlia's probably seen this too, when it's established there's a poltergeist present, or there is likely a poltergeist present, everything, I want to emphasize, underline, every fucking thing that happens in that house is then blamed on the poltergeist.
Yes.
You can't find your keys. Oh, the poltergeist took them.
Yeah.
Somebody ate the last donut. It was that poltergeist. So that's my take on poltergeist. I agree completely with your definition. But basically what it is it's a spirit that is, for whatever reason, getting attention, trying to get attention. See me, hear me, know me. I have to tell you something. I have to show you something. I have to express something to you. Most of those other ghosts are not interactive. If you do see them turn to you, look at you, it's probably not you they're turning to see. They're looking at somebody who was there in their time. They're looking at a room that existed that doesn't exist now in your time. They're looking at a train that's coming in their time. They're not looking at you. It feels like it because they're looking in your direction.
Right.
But they're not. With a poltergeist, a true poltergeist, and yes, they do actually exist, despite my upcoming and previous ramblings that they do not usually exist. They are real. But when a real one is there, they are directly interacting with the living. And that's the difference. Now, again, we might have a type of ghost, and I'll just briefly hit on this too, that is specifically trying to interact with you, not the person who lives in my house, not the person who disrupted my grave, whatever that might be. They're trying to interact with Dahlia. They're trying to interact with Heidi. And that's usually going to be somebody who knew you in life and is trying to get a message through to you. That's different. They are trying to get you to notice them, but that's a personal thing that isn't necessarily a poltergeist. A poltergeist is just some rowdy, randy, interactive ghost that wants to get your attention for their own purposes. That's what I got. That's what I would add to that.
Okay. Um, as far as interactions, you're 100% right. I've seen these things kind of not cling, but address everybody in the house rather than just being specific. Um, so instances that this has happened. Running a retreat on in close to Charlottesville, there was a rambunctious poltergeist who was visiting pretty much everybody who stayed at the house. So, a house full of 10 people, give or take a few, and running in and out of the rooms or closed my door. I felt him walk in, so heard the steps, felt him walk in and stand over my bed, and I was like, I'm just gonna go to sleep. Because at that point, it seemed like he was just visiting to visit as opposed to seeking harm. It was his house after all. And so it was just kind of like, all right, Howard, like, leave, please. if you felt the need to interact with him. And so, but he wasn't ever malicious. He did slide cups and plates and things and walk around, but that was probably the most vivid experience I'd have. Everything else was very light, nothing, and certainly nothing malicious. Um, but yeah, but you.
Well, I mentioned that we have a very busy house here, and it is poltergeist activity as well as some imprint stuff. We have a lot of, if you want to call interactive or poltergeisty animals. I think I mentioned this before. We have the cats that'll jump on the bed and make biscuits and push up against you, and you reach out. Now we have cats, but they sleep with Eric. They don't sleep with me. And I'll feel them. I'm like, Nemo, fuck off, man. I'm trying to sleep, and I'll put my hand back there, and there's nothing there. And when it was, you could hear the purr motor, you could feel the pressure up against you. So the animals here are the most present. They don't even try to pretend they're not there. I've only seen or felt cats so far. I have seen the impression of some little dogs, but I haven't heard anything and I haven't felt them. I've only just felt the cats. The people that are here, there's one that is very interactive specifically with me, and I don't have a sense of who this is. I know they're very affectionate and not in a creeper way.
Oh, nice.
And I know that they're male. And when I was sick, especially, I had COVID horribly and was in bed for 2 weeks. And there's been a couple of times I was having a Meniere's attack and I was in bed for that. When I'm really sick, I feel it a lot more. I think my reserves are just down more at that time. I don't shield as a rule, but we always have a little bit of shield that we're naturally putting up. But there were so many times, and I mean too many to count, that I would feel Eric come into the room. He would lean over and kiss my forehead, and I would open my eyes and he wasn't there. Or there was one time that he put his hand on, I was on my side, and he put his hand on my hip, and he was behind me, and he just leaned over and just pressed up against me with this warm, loving hug. And which is exactly what Eric would do. And I just said something like, "Hey, sweetie, did you sleep well? Or are you doing okay?" And there was nobody there. There was a couple of times it happened, and I realized after I said it that I had forgotten Eric was not even here. He was at the store or something like that. So, and it's
Ooh.
a very male presence. But again, I've been in the presence of creeper ghosts who are just touchy feely and just have this ick vibe to them. And
Yeah.
it's not that at all. It's just this loving male presence.
Hmm.
And it's almost like it's sort of fatherly, but not. But it's just really sweet. And so I'll talk about my, because we'll get to the place where I'm talking about how it might not be a ghost, or it might not be a poltergeist a little bit, and I have a theory about that too. But that's one presence. There's been plenty of times that I hear people talking clearly, clearly hear people talking. Someone is having a conversation in the guest room. Someone is having a conversation in the apothecary, to the point that I'm wondering. Now, we live in a very, very remote location. There are not people here. The only people I have are my son, Dylan, and his wife, Nix, and they keep very much to themselves. We know if they're coming up. They knock on the door very loudly because they know one of us might be naked and they don't want to be scarred for life. So, I mean, we're very respectful of each other's spaces. They don't just walk in. But there's been times I've thought, wow, did Eric let them in and I didn't notice, and they're back there talking? And I go in there and there's nobody there, and Eric is down at the shed or something. So I hear people talking a lot. I have heard sounds. This is very Overlook Hotel, but I've heard sounds of parties going on in the living room.
Hmm.
And then I walk in and it's completely silent. And of course, our brains try to make this make sense. And so my immediate thought is somebody left a radio on somewhere. When I know there's not a damn radio anywhere in this house. Or I'm thinking, well, Eric must be watching something without his earbuds in, and it's just his computer, and there's nobody there. So
Huh.
that's my experience, and it's mostly been in this house, and that's away from I would say, ghost management that I've done in the past. I think I've told the story of the Kukui room
Yes.
at the shop. And Eric just went into our old shop, and the people that rented it after us are mental health professionals.
Oh God.
And so Eric went in because he's Eric, like, what'd you do to our shop? How does it look? And it's beautiful. They did a fantastic job of renovating the shop for their own needs. It's beautiful. I saw photos of it. And I didn't have the heart to ask them, did you
Oh, that would have been my first question.
go in the Kukui room?
That
Because
would
that
have.
was just a room that we saw a lot of activity, including a ball of light that came through the window. There was a window that went into another room. It didn't go outside. It went into another room. And we watched it bounce through the window to us on the other side of the room and land in the middle of the table and then break up. And it was that thing of all of us going, did you see that? There were 8 people in this room. Did everybody here see that? So those are some of my experiences, and they're fun. I don't feel threatened by any of them. I've
No.
been in ghostly situations where I did feel threatened. And that's part of the reason why I ultimately retired from that part of my practice, because it got to the point I was just saying, you know what, I'm too old for this shit. I'm just not interested in this process anymore. And so I stopped doing the house clearings. I'll do a remote cleanse on a house.
Mhm.
I will interact with the spirits that are there and ask them what they want and give description of them and that sort of thing. But I won't clear them out anymore.
Right. It's just
I'll negotiate with them. I'll ask them if they're willing to go or what they would like in order to go. Like, how can I pay you off?
right.
But yeah, so that's my place with it.
You reminded me as you were kind of going over your experiences, one of the things that came up in the research is how smells are associated with poltergeists as well.
Mhm.
So there's like different levels of experience to include yours, which are very much through the felt senses. And then there are things that, others may uh, slightly pick up on and go through. Um, and this is also sort of bringing me to this place as you were talking about thinking that Eric was in the room. I recall a time where I was laying down and I had just gotten done kind of petitioning the Ascended Masters for something. And I was laying down and I felt something get in my bed and like cuddle me. And not in a creepy way, but I was just
Mhm.
like, and my first thought was that it was an Ascended Master. I really didn't go
Jesus
further.
is all up in here, dude.
Right. Like I was like, why did Jesus just get in my bed? Like,
Want some of
can we
this?
talk? This is going in a different direction. And so there's so many different layers of different things, but we can still file it under poltergeist. Would you um so I had a client who had a similar experience, but the poltergeist was definitely weird and creepy, but would only enter her dreams. Would you still file that under poltergeist
I
for
don't.
okay.
I don't.
Okay.
I put that more as, I would say, spirit guides, but more like spirit buddies.
Oh no, it
Or
was a bad situation.
was it bad?
Yeah,
I
it was
I think of it sometimes as part of our soul tribe that did not incarnate this time, and that's the
bad.
only way they can connect with us or talk with us. And of course, our soul tribe is not always our buddies and our friends. It can be the people that teach us some of the most valuable and painful lessons that we need to learn as well. So that's how I would classify that. But again, that's just me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was
That's
interested in
my
your
thought on
opinion.
that.
Yeah. Um, so as far as because you were like, I'm the bad guy in all of this. Let's
I'm
let's
the
let's go down
bad
that road.
guy. Okay, so when we look at the behavior of ghost spirits and poltergeists, what sets the poltergeist aside is usually some type of telekinetic activity, meaning something is moving, or some type of perceived interaction, such as I had with thinking Eric was in the room,
Mm.
or we could go as far as the Bell Witch, where Betsy Bell was slapped repeatedly and had welts on her. There's multiple ghost stories of physical pain being inflicted on a person. And but the most common things we hear are the cupboard doors opening and closing,
Yep.
the home doors opening and closing. Stuff is not where you left it, stuff getting thrown around the room. I've absolutely seen things just go fly off a shelf.
Yep.
And so it's usually telekinetic motion that registers the poltergeist, or something that was just right there is not now there. And you find it in the freezer or something stupid like that. Here's my thought, and this has been my experience almost universally when I have gone to investigate a so-called poltergeist activity. One of the first things I do after I get the case study and figure out exactly what they're experiencing and what's happening is I interview everybody in the house. And I try to do it in a very, telling all my secrets here, I try to do it in a very passive way, so that we're just having a conversation. And what do you think about this? But man, my spidey sense is banging on these people. In almost every case, I can find a person in that home that I can perceive is subjugated in some way,
Hmm.
has an immense amount of frustrated energy that cannot be expressed for whatever reason. And it just sits there and it becomes more than this person can contain. And that energy has to burn off in some way. So we've
Ah,
usually got one part of the family or the home group who's acting out, who's behaving differently, who's just seething with something, or they just have this passion that needs to be released and can't be. And so that's coming, Bram. And so they have this huge feel, they have this huge emotion and drive. And it's different than just an emotion, there's a drive that's behind it that is overpowering and compelling that they cannot express.
Mm.
And I think that the energy of that takes form and begins to move things.
Yeah.
And often focuses on a person, and it's either the person who is subjugating them and keeping them from expressing whatever they need to express, or the person who is doing the repression themselves can often experience physical symptoms of their own pain on their body. Now, examples of this that I've run into, places where a person in the family is experiencing, trigger warning, some kind of inappropriate abuse,
Mm-hmm.
and they are not positioned to retaliate or to seek help for it. And all they can feel is that this is my life and I must endure this.
Mm.
Sometimes it's women who are pregnant and don't want to be,
Mm.
or find that once they are pregnant, they can't connect well with the pregnancy. It's not what they thought it would be. And so they're having this, what they perceive as a societal, a reaction that society would not appreciate or condone, because they're just not loving being pregnant, or they're just not loving um, what's happening with them, the prospect of parenthood. Sometimes it's got to do with absolute terror of giving birth. Sometimes it is somebody who knows their spouse is being unfaithful and can't or won't do anything about that due to cultural reasons or financial concerns. Sometimes it's a child who wants to do something so passionately, and a
Mm.
parent is keeping them from doing that, such as, I know I'm a born musician, but my parents can't afford an instrument and I can't play anything.
Interesting.
Or I really want to go to public school and my mom is insisting on homeschooling me, and I never get to see anybody and I'm just weeping because I miss people. I want to be with people. Sometimes it's this is twice that this happened for me. It was a, a male partner, a dad figure who never wanted children, but had children and continued to take care of them in the way society would expect. But they hate their life. They're doing a job that they hate. They're doing, and they just, no matter how much counseling they get, cannot get their head around what they're doing.
Mm.
But they're honor bound to continue this.
Sure.
And so there is frustrated energy in all of these situations. People who are ill sometimes want so desperately to express their energy and get out of bed that that energy will get a little busy, even though they are physically low energy. So it's somebody whose mind and spirit are used to being extremely active, but their body is keeping them from doing that. I had one instance where this was happening around a girl who had cerebral palsy.
Oh, interesting.
So her mental affectation was pretty much normal, but her physicality would not allow her the expression that she needed. She had a
Mm.
talking board, and that was just not enough for her. So I could almost always draw it back to something happening in the family where there was that nucleus of unexpressed energy. And yeah, there was a couple of times either I didn't ferret it out or it did not seem to exist,
Mm.
one or the other, because I'm just doing cursory interviews. I'm not counseling these people. I'm just interviewing. And but almost always, if you're trained for it and you're tuned to it, you can be like, ah, here's my puppy right here. This is the one.
Yeah.
And when you're managing that, you don't usually address that head on. You can still for lack of a better explanation, act like it's a poltergeist and do some management of that energy. You can talk to them about holding grounding stones. You can talk to them about different oils to use under the guise of this is a protection for you so that you do not have these symptoms. You don't have to lie to them, but you also don't have to say, I got rid of the ghost.
Right.
So you have to find within your own vocabulary how you're going to express what you're doing. But that's why I would say that now in my case with Eric, where I could be almost certain that this is Eric coming in to cuddle me and touch me, it could be my rational mind saying there's only one person who's going to do that, and that would be Eric. But it could also be something, and it could be a ghost in my house. I'm completely open to that. But it could also be something like Eric and I have been married for 27 years, and we are about as close as two people can be in our hearts and our spirits. And so we are close even when we're not together.
Hmm.
So if he's out working on his motorcycle or the car or visiting and he has a thought about me, that energy could come to me in that form.
Right.
So it's more of a transmigration of the energy than this is the ghost of dead Eric or something. So I just think there are lots and lots and lots of explanations for this. And it's just so much easier to go, oh, we got a poltergeist, let's bang the pan.
Coming across different things, we're stepping into sort of what Carl Jung was saying about. So I absolutely love that man.
Did you?
He did everything and didn't and he did so unapologetically. But in a conversation, I came across a story of a conversation he was having with Freud, where they were exchanging. It didn't indicate clearly if this was a poor exchange or if it was a friendly exchange, but there was a bookshelf in his office that split, like it cracked during the exchange, and Carl Jung was able to accurately predict that it would do it again. For Freud and Freud's followers, this was no, there's probably like water under the house that's making it shift and expand. The temperature of the room is probably making the wood expand and contract. And Carl Jung was adamant that it was that sort of emotional psychic energy that was coming from his expression. I mean, I can only imagine, right? Talking to your mentor who you disagree with fundamentally every way. So to your point, the emotional component is there. And sometimes it is a mixture of both, I think. I brought up that there was a trio, a mom, a daughter, and the babysitter, sort of a pair situation last show. And it's this conversation here about emotions and expression and things like that. It's actually giving legs to something that had happened years ago that is maybe more layered. It wasn't just that they were opening portals together, but maybe the emotional component, their dynamic, that was also feeding the things that were happening around them.
Mm-hmm.
So
And of
thank you.
course, as you're experiencing this, those emotions for everyone will grow.
Yeah.
So that feeds it even more. And a lot of people who are trying to mitigate the situation will take their smoke that they're using to clear the area. And when it billows up, say, oh, that's where the ghost is. No, that's probably where these people had an argument yesterday. That's pushing energy in this place.
Yeah.
And so when you're having that, what you're describing as a dynamic situation between the people that's creating this huge emotion, there are certain hot spots in the house, which will actually end up being cold spots, truth be told, where specific key experiences happened that informed that emotional dynamic between those people. And that's where your smoke will tend to billow out a great deal. Now, again, there might be a ghost in that corner. I'm not saying there's not. I don't know. Any of these things I'm putting out there, I can say I don't have the answer. But in
Sure.
my experience, it's just really convenient that almost every single time we had any telekinetic activity or any, to some level, abusive activity, I'll talk about that in a second, but there was always that little nucleus of just simmering something there. And there was usually somebody else who was playing it up,
Mm,
who knows that that intense energy is there, and they're poking the tiger
yep.
and instigating, and that builds it up even more. When I was talking about the idea of the smoke, the smoke is going to help clear out that dense energy, but because you have not resolved the underlying dynamic that's creating it, it's just going to come back. So you
Absolutely.
didn't get rid of the ghost because the call's coming from inside the house.
You just broke apart the marker. And what's interesting is stepping into those things, even if you're not working in the smoke, but like walking through and either having your emotions triggered, or seeing a flash or a memory of your own that represents what happened, or if you're
Mhm.
psychically attuned, you'll actually see kind of the argument that happened. Um, I recall walking into it wasn't a bar, it was like an art gallery, and but they had alcohol and stuff like that, and I think they used it for parties every now and again. And I walked into the bathroom, and I was like, oh nope, a lot of bad things have happened in here, a lot of unwanted aggressive things have happened here, and I just like I had to pee and I had to find somewhere else to go because I couldn't deal with it.
Yep.
Not a poltergeist, but a very strong, time, emotion, what I would call an echo.
Yeah, in that case, you were safer peeing outside.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, right. So, a common thought about poltergeists, and more so poltergeists than other types of ghosts, is when we hear folk tales about them, or anecdotal information from people about poltergeist activity, the two things that are most commonly said is that they are more easily seen and experienced by animals and children. Now, animals do not have the societal filters that we have,
Right.
telling them something is not there. Animals also respond very protectively and intently to. So that can work in the sense of there's a ghost here, or that can work in the sense of there is a big bad here surrounding my person or coming at my person. For children, that goes back to my original theory, because children are the most helpless people
Mm,
in our society, in terms of, if my daddy gets a good job and we have to move to Washington, I have to leave all my friends and I
mm,
can't do anything about it. Our
right.
life choices, in fact, affect our children in a way that leaves them helpless to do anything but adapt to it, even the good changes. So our children are basically powerless, even though we talk to them about their feelings and this sort of thing. If we ultimately make the best choice for a family, it often involves going against the wishes of the kids. So,
Right.
and that gets away from the rampant abuse of children
Mm,
and what goes on with kids in our society today. And so it stands to reason that children and animals would be more receptive to this type of energy than your basic, fully functioning, non-empathic, this stuff doesn't exist person.
right.
So that's why I think that they say animals and children, but empaths are just screwed. Just like you with having to go pee, you know, you can't walk around shielded all the time, or you'll
No,
never
yeah.
experience anything. Plus, keeping up shields is a lot of energy work. So I usually only use shields if I absolutely have to. But yeah, there's times you just walk into a room and you're like, nope.
Yeah, this is the big nope. That's
We
all we
call it
need.
the nope room.
And that's all, your nope is enough. You don't have to go, oh no, and being sensitive. No, just walk out. Just leave.
Yeah. And like, aren't you going to go visit daddy in the hospital? Sure. Hospitals are terrible.
Oh my God, they never clean. Just keep the Palo Santo and the lighter in the car
Oh
because you're gonna
my
need it.
God. Hotels are awful.
Pretty bad.
I can rarely sleep in a motel or a hotel.
Yeah.
Absolutely god awful. Uh, Um, amusement parks. Amusement parks
Really?
are terrible for this. Mostly because I mean, and I'm talking Disneyland and
Oh,
Magic Mountain and the big amusement parks, because families have spent a lot of money to make this happen. Those things are
right. And a
expensive.
lot of emotion.
And a lot of emotion invested into this. And if a kid's not having a perfect time
Hmm.
or has a moment of feeling frustrated about something, it's seen as ingratitude for what's happening.
Right.
So yeah, I have problems at amusement parks too, because there's just all these pockets of just frustration and anger and fear, and kids are afraid of a 6-foot mouse. That doesn't feel good. So yeah, there's lots of weird emotion there too. It's not the haunted houses that are problems, it's the places where people are that are problems.
Right. We're creating our own set of issues.
Not to mention how many people have been killed at Disneyland. I
Oh,
mean,
no, maybe another conversation. Maybe conversation for another time because I was
oh,
no.
there's a dark side to Disneyland for sure. So one of the things that I mentioned was the physical abuse. And that's something, oh yeah, Walmart's bad. Uh, something I don't know about you, but I don't run into the physical abuse as much as just the noisy ghost idea or the rumbling ghost idea. The
Hmm,
physical abuse of being slapped, hit, punched, violated in some way, in an unwelcome way. Those things I see more as rarities. I don't see them as often. And I got to be honest with you. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, it does.
yeah.
But as I begin to explore the person who is doing the narrative to me or sharing the narrative with me, I start to see lots of other red flag areas
Interesting.
where this person is attention seeking or this person is um, medicated in a strange way or needs to be medicated in a different way. And again, I'm not saying they're not having those experiences. However, there are often instigating factors in the person themselves
Hmm.
that is a little bit suspect on that happening. So it's not 100%. I've seen some people that seem perfectly normal and dialed in, functioning people who have some abuse from a spirit. It does happen. And I'm sure if you had that experience, you are one of those people. But there are also that other side of humanity that has the abuse that you have to wonder, okay, what's actually going on here?
Yeah, I haven't experienced a lot of the mean, terrorizing physical interactions that people talk about. I feel like those are sort of the like the hedges of society where you're in the the boonies or in the country where you start kind of hearing those things, and that might lend itself back
Mm-hmm.
to what you were talking about earlier with the emotional components. Um, I've definitely had people come in with random bruises,
Mm-hmm.
but it seemed like and I don't know if this was just my frame of reference, but we ended up having conversations about timelines and past lives. Like past lives, time doesn't exist. So there are things happening concurrently that they're dreaming about, and they're re-experiencing it, and in flashes or, like I said, in dream state, and then they wake up with a bruise.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of when I start to see harm on bodies in that way, it's
Mm-hmm.
usually that way,
Yeah.
not from ghosts and things in their house. So yeah, I would say aside from maybe like the smells, like the random smells, the I've definitely had experiences with the cabinets, the dishes moving, things like that. Nothing malevolent has really showed
Mm-hmm.
up. I can tell you I've had visions that lent themselves to the appearance of malevolence, if that makes sense. So it was something that was like nasty looking and aggressive looking. And then it would turn out to just be like lost, like, hey, I don't want to be here
Mm-hmm.
either. Like,
I'm
I'm just
sorry,
like
I'm
this
ugly.
door. So
I lose so many friends.
right. So
Oh
and they
God.
go, oh, well, the door's right here,
Yeah,
go ahead
yeah.
and walk out. So that's sort of the speed that I've the wave that I've ridden as
I
far
did
as
have I did have one weird situation. This was about 6 or 7 years ago, where this girl came to me. She was in her 20s.
hmm,
And all through her childhood, her father was very overbearing and physically abusive to her. And we're talking broke her arm, another time broke her wrist on the same arm, had knocked out a tooth. I mean, was really abusive.
wow.
And she had moved out and gotten married in her 20s to, interestingly, and breaking the pattern, a really wonderful dude. And as far as I know, they're still together. But her father died. So I'd been working with her, processing her experience with her father while he was still living, and her trying to do cut and clear candles to release that energy, and working through her feelings of, I don't want to forgive him. You don't have to. That's fine. Just, but you need to take sovereignty over your space and your experience aside from him. So we're doing all these lengthy counseling sessions and this sort of thing. And then after we'd been doing that for about 6 or 7 months, he unexpectedly died. And so
Interesting.
she came in and she's like, I know you're going to think I'm a terrible person, because she had been taught she was a terrible person. You're going to
Oh,
think I'm a terrible person, but I am so happy. I never have to think about this person hitting me again. I never have to think about being afraid that he's going to snap and hurt me again. I can go visit my mother and not be afraid. So she was just liberated. And then about 2 weeks after he died, she started having stuff fly around her house. She would have, like, there'd be a glass on the counter. I remember one time, and it was as though a hand picked it up and just slammed it against the floor. And she was having things like her pillows on her bed disappeared, and they just never found them. They were just gone. And just weird stuff like that was happening. Then she started, and talk about nighttime, she started waking up with bruises. And I'm not talking little bumps. I mean big purple bruising on her. And
mm,
she went to the doctor to be checked to see if she had a clotting disorder or some internal bleeding or what's going on, because she would have big bruises, and she showed them to me on her abdomen, on her back. And I went into clear, and all I could get was, he's here, he's here, he's here, he's here. And my belief to this day is that her father came back to beat on her some more.
yeah.
Now, it could be that she manifested those out of some sort of guilt over feeling happy that her father died. So we could go psychological on that. But at the same time, I had to do a lot of clearing in that house. And I finally felt like I got him to leave, and I had bruises by the time I was done working on him.
Wow.
That was probably, I would say that was my most intense clearing that I did.
Yeah. Wow.
And
I
they
mean,
were Hispanic, and the Latin community, a lot of the dads are just really fierce. I mean, culturally fierce. And this one sure was. And he did
well,
not want a white girl coming and telling him what to do.
I was thinking about that earlier culturally. Like that's typically in the Hispanic community, in Asian cultures, you typically are going to run more into poltergeist than you would everyday America. because of, I think, just the reverence that they have for the other side, and their belief allows things to pass through more easily. Their lands are sacred. You know, speaking of sacred land, I don't know. I think Yosemite is sacred, but Bram was mentioning experiencing an emotional haunting while staying in Yosemite. You're on. You're not on. It's not like parkland, but it's very naturey. I find that those places are very active, not necessarily for the poltergeist conversation, but definitely they are energetically active. And I think that in like in your story, when we come together with emotional wounds that are still healing or slightly open, and that mixes with the potential for portals, poltergeists, or what have you, it creates a very, it can be a very intense experience. So,
Oh, it absolutely can. And, it's all got to do with your perception. What Claire are you? We've
mm,
got all the Claires in our family, the clairvoyant, the clairsentient, the clairaudient. How are you perceiving what's around you? That's usually how you're going to perceive any type of spirit or poltergeist.
absolutely. So the technical conversation of poltergeist. This was fun. It makes me want to dive deeper and reopen some books that I have. But continue dropping your stories in the comment section. Thank you, Bram, for see we're never really gonna lose Bram, and I'm excited about that. Um, we'll continue our virtual friendship here. And thank you, Heidi, for joining. Thank you, Barry. And like I said, drop those stories, drop more questions, curiosities. This brought up a lot in me. I'll probably be Googling into the night about technical terms and other people's experiences. But on the other hand, we're at that power hour. We are going to let you all get back to your lives. Thank you for being with us for this long, and we will catch you next time on Crossroads of Cognizance.